Welcome back. This video is about serverless stack. We will use AWS services as examples to explain serverless stack. In the serverless stack, function as a service or FaaS is central to the serverless architecture. FaaS deals with the code of the application. The FaaS is central to the serverless architecture. Any serverless computing-based application will most likely include FaaS. In order to understand function as a service from the serverless stack perspective, let's look into this diagram. Let's assume in this diagram that this web application is implemented using serverless architecture. Let's focus on customer service and user service. The customer service interacts with external API, and the user service interacts with the external database for the user information, for example, for user verification and new user registration. In this use case, customer service and user service can leverage function as a service, for example, AWS Lambda, from the serverless stack. If you are using the AWS Cloud Platform, using function as a service to implement customer service and user service, engineers would have to only write code for the functional aspect of the service or business logic part of the service. The execution and scalability aspects will be taken care by the serverless provider, for example, AWS. This is huge plus of FaaS if you look at it from the time-saving and productivity perspective. Additionally, serverless database and storage services will scale automatically. Let's try to understand this with the example we have. In using serverless architecture, user service can store user registration in a serverless database, such as DynamoDB or Amazon Aurora, to optimize the cost and scalability of user service. Another component in serverless stack is event-driven and stream processing. If your application is event-driven or a stream processing application, you can use serverless architecture. One of the challenges of these kinds of applications is the unpredictability of loads, which makes planning and managing scalability challenging. You may over-provision or under-provision resources. The serverless architecture is very useful for this type of application to handle scalability and manage runtime resource needs. AWS has many serverless services for event-driven and stream processing applications. For example, AWS SNS, AWS SQS, and AWS Kinesis are some examples of serverless services. API Gateways is another serverless architectural component. API Gateway acts as front-end controller and takes care of routing HTTP requests to appropriate FaaS components. Additionally, API Gateways can handle API call rate limits, CORS, and other security and management aspects. Coming back to this architecture diagram of user management which we are looking into. In this API Gateway is a serverless component that handles authentication of users and other API management-related aspects. Imagine building the API Gateway in a non-serverless way. As you can realize, handling scalability will become a challenging engineering exercise. To review, serverless architectural stack provides function-as-a-service components to write services without much thinking about scalability issues. Provides database and storage services without going through the exercise of how many extra servers we need to handle additional loads. The serverless provider will take care of provisioning and scalability needs, and you only pay for the usage. Provides services for event-driven and stream processing. In the non-serverless environment, we need to monitor and troubleshoot issues and handle scalability issues continuously. There is always a possibility of over-provisioning or under-provisioning. If you have worked on an event-driven or stream processing type of application in a non-serverless environment, you can easily understand how helpful serverless architecture is. You just focus on writing code for business logic or functional requirements, and let serverless providers provide and manage runtime computing resources. Finally, we have API Gateway that fronts it with all kinds of things, such as request routing, rate limit, CORS, authentication, and many.